In the world of psychics and prophets, one name from the 20th century still sparks curiosity and debate: Jeane Dixon. For decades, her visions made headlines, and her predictions were whispered in the halls of power, fueling the hopes and fears of a nation. But what if her most startling warning wasn't the one everyone remembers? What if a prophecy for our immediate future has been hiding in plain sight, waiting for its moment? Before we continue, give this video a like if you believe Jesus is coming soon. This isn't just a story about fortune-telling. It's a look into a series of incredibly specific warnings left behind by one of the most famous seers of the modern era. She spoke of unprecedented political chaos, of false leaders rising from the shadows, and of a global conflict she claimed was set to begin in the year 2025. What she saw in her visions of America's future feels strangely relevant today. We're about to reveal what she saw and what she said would happen next. It all starts in dusty archives, hidden within the pages of old books and forgotten interviews. A chilling prediction, repeated over the years, that points to a single, startling conclusion. A warning for 2025 that has been overlooked for far too long. Jeane Dixon said a time would come when the world would be pushed to the brink. She saw a vision of political chaos, deceptive leaders, and a global conflict that would change the course of history. The question is no longer if she was right about the past, but whether we're living through the start of her final, most terrifying vision right now. To understand the weight of her predictions, you have to understand the woman herself. Born Lydia Pinkett in 1904, Jeane Dixon became a household name not with cheap tricks, but with a few shockingly accurate predictions that caught the world's attention. A devout Roman Catholic, she claimed her abilities weren't her own, but a gift from God, received through prayer. Her rise to fame began with one of the most shocking events in American history. In the May 13, 1956 issue of Parade magazine, Dixon made a chilling statement. She predicted the 1960 presidential election would be won by a Democrat, who would then be assassinated or die in office, though not necessarily in his first term. 7 years later, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, and Dixon's ominous forecast became a terrifying reality, cementing her reputation as a genuine seer. This one prediction opened doors to the highest levels of power. President Richard Nixon was known to follow her predictions, which were passed along to him by his secretary, Rose Mary Woods. White House tapes even record Nixon calling her the soothsayer. After the 1972 Munich massacre, her warnings of terrorist attacks in the United States were discussed by Nixon, who then prompted the creation of a cabinet-level committee on counterterrorism. She wasn't just a tabloid psychic. She was a voice that presidents for a time paid attention to. But her most famous prediction was just the beginning, a prelude to a much darker vision for America. Long before today's bitter political polarization, Jeane Dixon warned of a coming age of internal conflict in America. She foresaw a time where political division would spiral from simple opposition into outright hatred, fueled by hidden forces trying to sow chaos. Dixon warned that the two-party system would become a battlefield where the goal was no longer to govern but to destroy the other side. She described a paralysis in government, a time when leaders would be more focused on their rivalries than on serving the people. This prophecy, which might have sounded abstract in the 1970s, now feels like a description of our current political climate. We see families torn apart by political disagreements and friendships ending over ideology. Civil discourse often seems replaced by outrage, and common ground feels like it's shrinking every day. Dixon believed this division wasn't a natural political evolution, but an orchestrated campaign, a spiritual battle for the nation's soul, where fear and anger were the main weapons. Could the fractures we see in society today be the very cracks she saw forming in her visions decades ago? Beyond political warfare, Dixon's visions warned of an even more sinister threat: the rise of false leaders. She spoke of charismatic figures who would appear across the political spectrum, promising prosperity and freedom, but whose real goals were power and control. She cautioned that these leaders would be masters of manipulation, using the media to twist truth into propaganda and create crises to justify taking away personal liberties. Dixon urged people to use spiritual discernment and to judge these figures not by their seductive words, but by the fruits of their actions. Did they bring unity or division? Did their policies lead to real freedom or a more subtle kind of tyranny? This warning goes beyond any single political party. It speaks to the danger of putting our faith in charismatic personalities who play on our fears, rather than in principles of truth and integrity.
This book is your beginner's guide to understanding Scripture. Find peace, build relationships, and discover purpose in today's world. Ready to decode the Bible? Find Bible Decoded available on Amazon now.
If this content blesses you and you'd like to support our mission, you can buy me a coffee or give a super thanks. Every contribution helps us create more content to inspire and uplift others. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my future videos. She warned of wolves in sheep's clothing who would offer security in exchange for freedom and prosperity in exchange for control. In an age of deepfakes and information warfare, her advice to judge leaders by their actions has never felt more critical. She believed that following these false shepherds would lead America into its darkest chapter. We're left to wonder if these figures are already among us, speaking from the world's most powerful platforms. While her warnings about America's internal struggles were dire, it's a lesser-known global prophecy that carries the most immediate and shocking timeline. In her 1969 book, My Life and Prophecies, Jeane Dixon laid out a specific and startling vision for a major global conflict set to begin in 2025. According to her book, the period between 2025 and 2037 would be defined by a great war, started by China against Russia. She wrote that Red China will march into Russia, kicking off a war of conquest. She claimed this conflict wouldn't be short, but a drawn-out struggle lasting more than a decade. In an era of shifting alliances and global tensions, this decades-old prediction has taken on an eerie new life. However, as we stand here in October 2025, it's crucial to note that this prophecy remains unfulfilled. The predicted war has not begun, and the current relationship between China and Russia is marked by cooperation, not conflict. Dixon's vision is a stark contrast to today's geopolitical reality. The year 2025 is here, and with it comes the urgent question of whether this long-forgotten prophecy was a glimpse into a potential future or simply a fascinating but failed prediction. Of course, no honest look at Jeane Dixon can ignore the other side of her legacy. For every stunningly accurate vision, there were many predictions that never happened. This is so common, it was named the Jeane Dixon effect, the tendency to focus on a few correct predictions while ignoring a mountain of wrong ones. Dixon famously and incorrectly predicted that World War III would begin in 1958. She prophesied that the Soviets would be the first to put a man on the moon, and that a cure for cancer would be found by 1967. She even incorrectly predicted that Richard Nixon would win the 1960 election, the same election where she correctly predicted the winner would be a Democrat who would be assassinated. Skeptics argue her successes were just lucky guesses in a sea of misses, that if you fire enough arrows, one is bound to hit the target. They point out that many of her prophecies were vague enough to be reinterpreted after the fact. So we're left with a big question. Was Jeane Dixon a true prophet with a divine gift? Or was she just a master of vague statements, whose fame rests on a few coincidences blown up by a hopeful public? Does the chilling accuracy of her JFK prediction and her documented influence on a president outweigh her long list of failures? The story of Jeane Dixon is a mix of documented hits, glaring misses, and prophecies that are perhaps still waiting for their time. Her visions of a divided America and deceptive leaders feel uncomfortably familiar. Her specific timeline for a global conflict starting in 2025 now hangs in the air, waiting for history to deliver its verdict. Whether you see her as a prophet or a product of her time, her warnings push us to look critically at the world, at our politics, our leaders, and the stability of our world. Is her vision for 2025 a pre-written destiny or a possible future we still have the power to change? Maybe the final answer is up to you. What do you think? Are we seeing Jeane Dixon's prophecies come to pass? Or are they just stories from the past? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this investigation compelling, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next journey into the world's greatest mysteries.
Feeling anxious or disconnected? Ready for a deeper faith journey designed just for you? Discover Bible Study for Black Women. This guide nurtures faith, strength, and growth week by week. Overcome fear and connect with God. This empowering journey is waiting. Find Bible Study for Black Women on Amazon today and start building unshakable faith.
If this content blesses you and you'd like to support our mission, you can buy me a coffee or give a super thanks. Every contribution helps us create more content to inspire and uplift others. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my future videos.